Well, welcome to the BNI Effect, the home of amazing conversations with Brisbane BNI members sharing tips on how you can get the most out of your BNI membership. I'm Tony Meredith, and ordinarily I'm a business coach, but today I'm your host and fellow BNI member, bringing you yet another outstanding interview with a Brisbane BNI member. This is episode number 63, and today's guest is Steve Clark. Welcome, Steve. How are you?
Thank you, Tony. Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for being here. Let's kick it off by you telling us a little bit about who you are, your business, and the main services that you provide.
I'd probably simply put, I think my life's in two parts. One is I started in finance and accounting, a CPA. Didn't like it that much. Had an engagement that broke off, so I took off overseas to get away and came back 18 years later. And so that was like an interesting journey. When I came back in the early 2000s, I came back to Queensland. I'd been a Victorian prior to that. I wanted to go to a warmer place because I spent a fair bit of time in hot places. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, except I wanted to work for myself. And my CPA magazine started talking about coaching, which I didn't know anything about. I used to be a cricket coach, so I knew a little bit about what coaching was. So I cut a long story short, I invested time and money into being trained as a coach and get qualified as a professional certified coach with the National Coaching Federation. So that's probably the second part of my journey. And what I found was that I was quite a good problem solver. So I think a lot of what I do revolves around problems. So I go into a company and I say, what's the problem you've got? And then I sort of break it down and find out what the cause is. And perhaps that cause is something that can be a coaching solution, a training solution, a consulting solution, facilitation or mentoring. And then I work out what I think the solution is and whether I can provide it. So I'm what you might call a bespoke tailored coach, which is a generalist coach is another way of looking at it, which has its ups and downs. But I just enjoy breaking down a problem into what it really is and then helping clients solve that problem.
Fantastic. Now, you haven't shared with us your business name.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my business name is called Fridays Off, which corresponds with a book I wrote in 2020 about a client that wanted to back out of their business, get some more time to themselves, and eventually sell it. Yeah, so thanks for reminding me. I had that business name in a book.
That's okay. So when did you write the book, Steve?
Around 2020.
Okay.
And I did it on the journey of this client back in about 2017. So it was really just about how we got them to Fridays Off. So it was a very practical account of the steps that we took. So it's probably not a bedtime reading book or a fiction, sort of what is it, fiction? Yeah, no, but most people have read it, like it, and say they get tips from it.
Okay,
So that's good.
So in the book, you've got some, sounds like some practical, tangible, implementable strategies and tips that people can put in place in their own business to hopefully then enable them to have Fridays off. Is that right?
Very much so. Very much so. And that's the feedback I've got. And, since I did that, I found I think that whatever solutions we put in place, they're generally not new. They've been around for a long time. But what I've been able to do over 20 years is to say, well, the client would really benefit from this particular tool. So I've developed a lot of tools that I haven't seen around in other places. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're fantastic, but well, I think they're not bad. So yeah, the answer is yeah. I've been able to, they can take that tool or that template or that solution and apply it to their real life situation to get an outcome.
And so when clients come to you, do they aspire to take Fridays off? Is that the goal?
Not all. I'm trying to, for the first time this year, I want to do some marketing to try and get some people introduced in the concept of taking Fridays off, because I haven't really marketed it or anything in the past. So the answer to your question, but yeah, I'd like to talk to more of those sort of people. And my initial role is just to try and educate people on what I know about it, because a lot of people say, no, that's not possible. This can't happen, and they can't get staff, can't do this. Hey, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm certainly saying it's not impossible.
And so, even though you're a problem solver, do you offer different types of services to the clients you work with, Steve?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. The answer is yes, because I tailor their solutions to what they need, it might mean they don't need a whole suite of solutions. They just might need a strategic plan or some help with performance management. So I then go through and say, well, this is what I think you need. You're okay in all these areas. So my solutions are not off the shelf solutions, which on the one hand is good. I know on the other hand, some people would argue it's not good because it's hard to replicate, hard to duplicate. But that's just the way I prefer to operate. I'm not trying to take over the world. I'm just trying to get a number of clients who I can work with and get great outcomes for, and then they'll refer me on to their family and friends. So that's probably why I haven't had to spend any money on marketing over 20 years.
And who would be an ideal referral for you, Steve?
Well, for the Fridays off, it would be a business owner that's got five or more staff, because if you have less than five staff, very hard to delegate anything. And they've been working quite hard for a number of years and just feel as though the business is not giving them back what they deserve. And maybe they've got young children, they want to pick them up from school or spend more time with them, or maybe they want to start a second job, which a lot of younger people want to do these days. Some people have said to me that, is it only just people who are over 50 that want to get to the Fridays off? I said, no, not really. A lot of young people are very keen and very conscious of the work-life balance, which is probably something I didn't look at too well when I think about it when I was in my career. And I get that, I understand that. So they want to do other things. So if they can get a business that's humming and running along for themselves with a management team in place, or a good manager in place, and they're well rewarded, they've got a good culture, they're ticking all the boxes, then they can go off and do something else. So it's a business owner looking for a bit of freedom, a bit more discretionary choice, but more importantly, just open to know, how do I do it? So I always sit down and educate people first. I mean, I don't have any clocks running or anything like that when people first meet me, because you just can't do it. So it's an education process for me. And then some people will say, oh, okay, maybe that's not as impossible as I thought. Let's go to the next level. What is that? Then I go back and I have a process called how ready are you to have Fridays off? And that's practically and mentally and emotionally. There's a number of, and at that point in time, I might point out to some business owners that I feel it might be a challenge for them because they don't really want to let go. They could be a bit of a micromanager. They could be a bit negative. So I'll be quite honest, because I don't want to take somebody on and have it fail. That reflects badly on them and badly on me. And so I'm quite fussy a little bit in terms of who I take on, but more importantly, what the problem is to get them to Fridays off in 120 days, because 120 days is not a lot of time. So we have to hit the ground running, and they really need to follow my process. So I spend a fair bit of time explaining my process and convincing them that it's solid. It's not just airy fairy, and we need to follow it.
Amazing. Let's change gears. Let's have a chat about BNI.
Yeah,
How long have you been involved in BNI for? And when were you introduced to BNI, Steve?
great question again, Tony. And for this reason, when I first came back from overseas in the early 2000s, I came to Queensland, didn't know anybody at all, went into a new business coaching. I thought it would just be a matter of saying, right, I'm open for business, come into my door. Well, of course, we know that doesn't happen. So I said, how do I meet business people in Brisbane? And somebody said to me, networking, and try a company called BNI. And so I reckon in about 2004, I first joined my first BNI. And that was a great way to meet people, business people who were serious about what they do. And, I just worked out the other day, I still use four people from 20 years ago to service my needs. Mechanic, my accountant, marketing person, a massage therapist. Um, and that started me on the journey of getting there's lots of networking groups around, but BNI was one that had a structure, it had purpose, it had accountability, and that's what I sort of needed. So it was great for me. And I've had a couple of breaks from BNI for different reasons, but I'm still in BNI today, which is something about the brand.
And what was it about that first meeting that encouraged you to come back again and again?
Well, you know what? I liked the idea of meeting weekly because you get into a pattern, you get into a consistency. And what I realized was that everybody's got the same issues as you. We're all generally smaller businesses trying to make it and therefore sharing ideas and getting some support. So I guess it was a combination of camaraderie, support, structure, and you got some referrals for it. Like I got all of my business from word of mouth and through BNI and then through connections through BNI that led to other connections and what have you. So that was my experience back then, even though it was all manual back then. We had manual referral slips and everything. Um, the structure is sound and solid, and Ivan Meisner's, still there. And so it has some concreteness about it. There's a lot more business networking groups around today, but I found, because I got invited to a few, they're quite fluffy and they don't stand up. I think in the smaller to medium sized business area, BNI, in my experience, leads the way, and I've done a lot of networking.
So, how has being part of a BNI chapter influenced your approach to networking, Steve?
I think the building of relationships. I've always prided myself in being a bit of a people person. So when I actually join a group, I look to build solid relationships. I'm always disappointed when somebody leaves, to a BNI, to be quite honest. If you can find, so it's the building trusted relationships over time and giving it time. Because, Tony, you're in the same business as I am. Coaching is a high trust business, a high impact. So people don't not necessarily going to quite easily refer to you or I as they might do. I got a plumbing problem, I need a plumber. And I get that. But so I found that just by understanding that I needed to uh, build that trust over time, and it would take time. And then I just invested in, giving, like the givers gain concept, and then it started to pay off. But in my experience in the role in the area that I'm in, it probably takes probably not until the second year that things start to happen in a new chapter, I believe.
Yeah, it's
Whereas
interesting.
if I was an electrician, I could go in a chapter and get a referral, but that's okay. That's not a comparative criticism.
Yeah, I call it micro activity, macro patience, which is exactly what you're talking about. So at the micro level, do all the right things, do them consistently, do them persistently, but then at the macro level, be patient for the outcome and trust the process. Like you said, Dr. Ivan Meisner created this thing 40 years ago this year. So clearly, it works. It stood the test of time. There are millions of members around the world, and it's about just trust that system, follow the process.
Yeah, I like the way you described that. Yeah.
How do you measure the success of your participation in BNI, Steve?
Well, I measure it in a few ways. I mean, ultimately, BNI is based on it's a referral based organisation, so that could be that's a tangible financial measure, and to me, that's important, and that's been good over the years. I don't need to get a lot of referrals because I don't have a lot of clients, but the reality is, if I get a client, the average lifetime for me, if I get a new client, they'll generally stay with me for 3 years. So, so I don't mind waiting to get that opportunity. So it's referrals, which I think I've done well in terms of my profession, my category, but just more the relationships and people that you can rely on if you have a problem. Hey, can we get I use it as a bit of a sounding board as well. Like we can have our power teams within BNI, and I've got one, and I can use that as a sounding board, or they can use me as a sounding board. Say, hey, what do you think about this? I'm not sure. So can you help me road test my thinking? So even though I'm a coach, and one would think hopefully you know a fair bit about stuff, it's hard to be objective about yourself because we're too subjective. So that's been good. We try and have some social events. So I like going along to social events. Like I'm a bit of a nurturer. I like to nurture relationships. So that's what I want to get out of it. Um, and yeah, I think that's probably about it.
No, that's heaps, by the way. How has your business evolved since joining BNI, and what role has the network played in that growth, Steve?
Well, I have not done any real marketing in 20 years, paid marketing. Some people say I should have. Maybe they're right. Can't go back in time. But it's been through word of mouth. And my main word of mouth team has been BNI. So, and even in BNI, with the concept of mixing with a group of people, um, um, outside of BNI, since that happened, outside of BNI, a couple of people came up to, not BNI people, but other people came up to me and said, "Hey, look, we're putting together a little executive lounge team. We want to try and just support each other in a different way." So like a power team, but at that time I wasn't in a BNI power team. So the concept of actually getting a group of people together to know and support each other, I probably wouldn't have done that hadn't I known the BNI experience. But I mean, the main thing is the BNI experience, um, and because the other thing too is one of the things that I probably haven't done very well over the years is actually get my message through to people, like in the infomercial and it's probably a funny thing, but I'm probably only starting to get better at it now, which is silly to say in one respect. But so I find the more that you have your one-on-ones with people and they get to know you and say, "Oh, you actually do that, do you? Oh, so you could." So I found that that's happened. So I always find if something's not happening in BNI, like in the early days when I wasn't probably getting too much out of BNI at one particular chapter, I started blaming BNI in the chapter, but then I got to step back and say, no, 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 no. No, no, the old story about you got one finger pointed at somebody else, you got two fingers pointing back at you. So it's your responsibility. If it's to be, it's up to me. So I said, well, what am I not doing? In terms of the KPIs for the BNI chapter, and that's revealed that maybe the chapter wasn't as good as other chapters, but I had the ability to impact on that, and I did, and I got some results.
Well, it's the accountability, isn't it? It's that personal accountability in it. And like you said, you'll get out of things what you put into them. So, great realization, Steve, and great advice. And just speaking of advice, do you have any other bits of advice for new BNI members to make the most out of their BNI membership?
I think getting active as quickly as you can is important. And I mean, these things are that they're sort of part of the role and the mentor coordinator, and the membership committee advise of this. But yeah, getting active and as quickly as you can, and particularly meeting early the leaders in the chapter or the champions in the chapter. Those people have got a positive attitude. Those people are doing well. They might be right up in the green, but they're also good people, and they can set you on the right track. So that I would do. That I would suggest. So in other words, for the first 3 months, put aside quite a bit of time to do that. And just realize that it will get better as time goes on. Join a power team if you can, or be invited to a power team, because within BNI you'll find that there are obviously groups that, through virtue of what they do, associate more with one another. Accountants and bookkeepers and that sort of thing, electricians and plumbers. So if there is a power team, ask to join it, or hopefully you'll be invited to join it. But the other thing I would say is, because I didn't do this very well, get onto the BNI tools as quickly as you can. Get on and understand the couple of websites. Get somebody to show you around that. A lot of people are quite happy to do that themselves. Was a bit slack around that. Because in the old days we got spoiled because we used to go a lot and have these face-to-face training and stuff like that. But you've just got to do it yourself. So I think find somebody who's good in your chapter on the tools, knows their way around the websites and the tools and the podcasts and different things. Spend a little bit of time with them because there's so much information there to what you need to do to be successful. It's like success is an algorithm, and algorithms go very well with franchise operations. So in other words, there's a system, just follow it. Do what the leaders do, find out. That's sometimes why I go to other chapters, because I like to see what the top people are doing and how they, operate. Who is it, that one chap from Leaders, the mechanic?
Yep. Jace Pearson.
Jace, people like Jace, like he's a mechanic. And you might think, well, how can he give so many referrals? But then you talk to him and you see what he does, so we can learn from those champions, see what they do, to see the pulse of the other chapter, what we can do. But and just absorb yourself into it. Ask as many questions. So I think that would be. I'd like to do like my Fridays off is 120 days. I'd do a 120-day sprint in BNI.
I like it. What a great idea. I think it's very clever and wonderful advice, Steve. So thank you for sharing. What's next for your business? You got any exciting projects or expansions on the horizon?
Well, I want to do something with the Fridays Off book, and that's because it was funny because I wrote it and then I said, oh God, I've done that. Now I can relax. But I didn't have a strategy to do anything with it. So my Fridays Off 120 program, I want to market. And I have another program which you'd probably understand, Tony. It's called the Perfect Year Business System. It's a little bit like this, throughout the course of the year, there's various things that should happen in a business and quite often don't because they fall through the cracks. So one of my clients actually asked me to come in and fill this sort of role. Like we do the refresh the strategic plan, the business plan, the marketing plan, the performance management, a few other things, And so I thought, well, hang on, well, this is a product. And so I want to market those two things. So for me this year, it's all about marketing, but the hard question is, and I know we've got plenty of marketing people in BNI, but what's the most effective form? So at the moment, I'm getting evaluating different ways to go. I know I have to spend some money. That's okay, but it's just evaluating the best strategy. And everybody's got their own version of that. So that's what I'm going through.
So which direction, essentially? You know that you've got to do some form of marketing, but it's about which way do I point those efforts. So,
it is. And I'd like to develop something online at some stage, but that's probably next year or the year after. So I just want to get these, as well as what I do in a bespoke coaching sense, which I spoke about. I want to have these two products and market them.
Well, that's exciting. So some real excitement coming up for your business. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of that come to fruition, mate. That'll be great.
Thank you.
How do you see your relationship with BNI evolving as your business grows and expands?
I just think, more of the same thing. Like I've made a decision that BNI is my family, my strategy for networking, and I will just make it work. I'll just make it work wherever I need to do. If I need to be patient, I'll be patient. If I need to do some more activity, I'll be more activity. So I just think it's more of the same. I don't think BNI has to do or change anything for me. I think it's probably me having to do what I do in terms of BNI better. To be honest, I probably sat back a little bit. And even just recently where I went through and I said, well, I'm not bringing enough visitors. For the first time, I went from the green to the yellow. I don't really still know why, but I mean, I know I can check it. But I looked and I said, well, I'm not bringing enough visitors. So I've gone through and updated my visitors, all the people I know, which is like a couple hundred people, and say, well, who can I invite? And I invited 4 already. One's accepted so far. So, yeah, I think it's more BNI's got the system there. I don't think it needs to do anything more for me. It's just me working the system and being a better BNI member, to be quite honest.
If you could share one piece of wisdom with our listeners, I mean, you've already shared heaps, but I'm going to ask
Yeah.
you for one more, whether they be BNI members or not, Steve, what would that piece of wisdom be?
Well, I'm a fan of Stoicism, which is some ancient wisdom that goes back 2,500 years. And when we look at a lot of what the Stoics said, we see it reported by lots of popular people today. So I guess the wisdom there is to knowing that everything that we need to do to be successful in business or life has already been done. There's been an algorithm created. There's been a way being created. We just need to ride on the backs of those who've been successful. So, um, so in a like if somebody comes to me and says, Steve, um, I need a bit of advice. I'm in a franchise. How can I do better in my franchise? I'll just simply say, I don't really know, but who's the most successful person in your franchise organization? Go and see them. See, because there's so that's why I'm a coach first and a consultant second, because um, I'm trying to, the answer's already there. So I guess what I'm saying is um, stop looking for silver bullets. Look for implement what you already know. Stop looking. A number of people that come and say, I just got a new idea out of a book. I just got a new idea out of a book. Yeah, okay, that's good. But what about the ideas you already know that you're not implementing? So work out what they are, make a list of every good idea you've ever had that you've never implemented and start looking at that. Say, well, should I be implementing that? What would be the impact of that? And do it. Because we just want to go on to something new. So that's probably a bit roundabout, sort of waffly way of answering the question, I think.
Right, so that's okay. And so quite often I find that it's the simplest solutions that are often the best. People look for that complex, convoluted. You're talking about what I would describe as shiny objectitis. I'm always looking for that something new, as opposed to the answer's actually right underneath our nose. It's staring us in the face, but yet we're not accepting that. We're looking for something else.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, that's a good way to sum it up. It's a little bit like one that also you probably do the same thing when someone comes to you and say, Steve, I've got a problem. And I'll say, is it the first time the problem's come up? And I'll probably say, oh, not really. I said, well, when did it come up? Oh, a couple of years ago. How did you solve it then? Well, I did this and I did that. Did it work? Yeah, sort of. Why don't you do that again? That's a short version of might be a
Yeah.
longer conversation, but that's the point. That's the point.
I get it. To all the listeners and viewers, just a couple of coaches chewing the fat right now. Anyway, we better. We're on the finishing stretch now, Steve. So, how can listeners learn more about your business or get in touch with you, mate?
Well, I think on LinkedIn, they can be on LinkedIn. Fridays off on LinkedIn. Steve Clark on LinkedIn. They can come to our BNI chapter, which is BNI B2B in the Brisbane Club on the fourth floor on a Thursday, or just give me a phone call. Have coffee. I love having, coffee and meeting new people. I find that terrific. And so I'm open. I'm always open for a chat. Always open to um, perhaps guide people in the right direction if I can. Not that that's the purpose of the coffee, but if it develops during the course of the conversation, that's naturally the way that I'm built, as you are.
Excellent. Very good. Well, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate it. Look, that wraps up another episode of the BNI Effect. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and I want to extend a massive thank you to our guest, Steve Clark, for sharing his insights with us. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to the BNI Effect on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, and please leave us a review. Thanks for listening or watching.